Ibn Sharif Shakoor, Louis Spears.
Louis Spears, how are you, sir?
What's up, man?
Good.
This interview might be a little biased, you know what I mean, because I know you a little bit.
Right.
But it's not a political interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mental health educational interview, which
Right.
gives people insight on who you are, your experiences, completely separate from what's going on now.
Absolutely.
It only helps to further get people to understand who Louis Spears is.
Right.
So,
Right.
first off, as a black man to black man,
Mm-hmm.
as a human being to a human being,
Mm-hmm.
how you feel right now, mentally?
Man, it's a lot. As like just managing, how you say it? Managing it all, right? Yeah, it's a lot trying to manage everything, man. And in general, I feel like the world is on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
In general, not in a way that it provides pressure generally, but in a way that's like, yo, I got things to do. But at this point, is a lot more pressure, man.
A lot more pressure.
A lot more pressure. I went to a gathering, and this older gentleman, he grabbed me by my shoulder. He said, "Don't embarrass us." He was like, "Don't embarrass us, man." And I'm like, I just understood it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't have any intentions on, right, embarrassing anybody or whatever, you know. And in fact, like, that's not the first group of people I think about when I think about embarrassing someone, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I think about God first. I think about my family second, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and then my young men for my organization, and then, you know, I think about like the community at large, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I mean, just from a literal standpoint, just the multiple roles that most of us have.
Yeah.
You're a father.
Yep.
You're a husband.
Right.
You're a mentor.
Yeah.
On top of that,
Yeah.
and you're accessible.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What type of stress does having that type of accessibility to you have? Like, does it affect you?
It ebbs and flows. So it affects me, but it ebbs and flows. So certain days, I don't want to have certain types of conversations, or I don't want certain people to have access to me, for whatever reason. And then other days, I'm like, let me just hurry up and get this over with, right? And there are several conversations or certain connections where I'm very upfront about like the time that I have. I will begin the phone call or the exchange. Hey, listen, I got 30 minutes, or I got 20 minutes. You got me full throttle. I won't check my phone. I won't.
Let me put that in my notes.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I start with that, and just so that we're clear going in. And most people are like, oh yeah, no, that's good. That's all I need, right? Because they know we're gonna shoot the breeze, but it's really like, what's the goal? What's the intended goal? Let's hit it and keep it moving.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
For me, I don't really like politics, or I'm not into it. But I mean, because I understand that it's bigger than one person.
Right.
It's a structure. It takes multiple people to create change.
Yeah.
But I can always say I can vouch for you because I saw you do the quote unquote groundwork.
Yeah.
Because you can't really when you rely on your genuine true self. I mean, it's gonna show.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take you back, and I know you remember this. This is for everyone else. When I'm 35 now, I think I was about 27 or 28.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I started having panic attacks.
Right.
And I never heard of that. What the hell is a panic attack?
Right.
And something told me to say it to you. And you were like, yeah, like this is
like
right, this is normal.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? You know what I mean?
I remember that.
But you gave me great advice, and you helped me, without even knowing, navigate to get to the information, and I didn't feel alone.
Gotcha.
You know, you didn't know you were gonna run for mayor, probably
right.
Down the line.
Yeah.
But those interactions that you have with people like me, with the people in the community, is what I hear people talking about the most.
Wow.
How does that make you feel hearing that?
So on any given day, right? I'm overwhelmed with wanting to be the best version of myself. Glenn Cunningham speaks about
great man.
yo, right, appreciate it. He said in a race, right, running for whatever office, is the man versus himself, the harshest of opponents, right? So it's really about like being the best version of myself, right? But being the best version of myself, part of that is like genuinely being concerned for others, man. Like I want people to do well. So we talk about this on off screen. We talk about like haters and things like that. Yeah. I really can't relate because essentially, even if there was a job that I wanted and someone else got it, and I think that they were awesome, like I'm high-fiving them. I'm just as excited for them. You know what I mean? And so I genuinely want people to win. And right now, it's really just about equipping myself with the knowledge, right, and just ensuring that I'm not going to steer people in the wrong direction, man. And so if there's pressure, that's where I feel it the most.
I mean, one thing I think we have to give ourselves credit for and being kind to ourselves is that, growing up in the environment that we grew up, literally for Jersey City, growing up, you Booker T, me on the Hill. Right. I don't know why I say Greenville now. That's new to me.
Right.
But sometimes our confidence is stripped from us because of our environment and the trauma that we experience.
Exactly.
You having to step up and run for office, how are you navigating that hurt little boy that we've talked about off camera before, and being able to fill that role and believe in yourself? Has it been a struggle? Elaborate on it.
Yeah, that's real. So one thing that I need to get better at, but like what I'm doing now is like doing videos to talk about like my experiences throughout the whole process, right? It's very therapeutic, and I could look back at it and all that good stuff. But it's tough, right? Because I've had people say to me, "Yo, who do you think you are?" Right? Like you don't have the potential to do something like this, right?
So it's reconfirming. My therapist told me that.
Yeah.
It's like reconfirming what your traumatic situations already told you.
Exactly, right? And then what I do right now, man, and I'm very strategic about this, I surround myself around like government-minded people who believe in what I believe in terms of, the way things should be, right? Like this very progressive, that's what they label it. I don't think it's progressive at all. I just think it's being human. Being kind, being conscious of like others in the world, right? So I don't necessarily look at it as progressive more than I look at it as being sensitive to everybody in the ecosystem, and not just the ones who have the wealth or the power, right? And so when I think about like what they say, right? The people who I surround myself around, they speak louder than those people at this point. I remember when I was young, I would like mull over all of the negative things that folks would say to me, right? Like being from the projects, it wasn't like you knew that you were poor. You just somehow felt insignificant at times, or a lot of times, right? Like you knew that there was lack, but you didn't understand like how much lack, right? Or where the lack was, but you know what I mean?
You didn't have the standard to compare it to.
Right. And we had TV, right? But we always just thought that was an esoteric idea. We could never reach it. Exactly. And so I think from then, right, like people told me not to go to Harvard, right? And I did it, right? Someone told me that like my wife was too good for me, right? But I bagged her, you know what I'm saying? Right? And so I have to, right? Because at the end of the day, she's holding me down at this point, right? Because like I come home getting beat up, tired, whatever, and she's like, "Yo, babe, your dinner is here," right? So it's like people have told me in the past what I couldn't do. And for some reason, I've always had the will to just do it. And it's not really to prove them wrong or right? It's just to say, well, I know my value, and this is where I'm gonna this is where I'm gonna choose to go.
I always say that it's just like a higher, whatever a person's faith, religion, spirituality. I feel like that's a divine thing.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times people ask me, how did you do it? I don't know.
Right.
This was just innate. It was just in me.
The other thing too, right, is in you, but there are times where you just have to step out. right? Where you're not sure of the next step,
Yeah.
or you're not sure of where you're going to get all the funds from, or whatever, right? You're unsure about the entire road, but you just take a leap of faith. You do it trembling, you do it unsure, you do it nervous, all of that. But you still do it.
100%.
And so folks have to know that, like,
Great philosophy.
you could do it, bro.
You can do it.
You can do it. And even if you're scared, do it.
Absolutely.
Right? Because who's living with regrets like that? You know what I'm saying?
I had a close friend say to me, bro, I've never seen you scared before. And I'm like, I experience fear, but I do it anyway.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Trauma can have you build tolerance a little bit.
Yeah.
But on to the next thing. I know you're a busy man. I can't keep you too long. But this is a question I ask most brothers.
All right.
And I'm going to continue as I do more interviews. When was the last time you cried and why?
Yo, so crazy, man. So I still have a adverse experience with crying still, right?
So you don't cry much?
I don't know if I really know how to. And that's real. Like, if I think tears are about to come out, I'll either laugh or do something else to, like, to distract myself, right? Yeah. I don't know how healthy it is. I mean, I found other ways, healthy ways to manage stress or deal with trauma and all that. But in terms of crying,
it's been a while.
It's been a long time, a really long time. I wish sometimes I could.
Well, let me rephrase it. Do you ever take time, and this might not be relevant to your journey, but do you ever feel like you have to take time to feel sad or to mourn, or maybe you're not struggling with anything related to that, but do you ever really have to take time to reflect and just grieve?
Yo, so the reality is that we're taught to, you know what I mean, like, get over stuff.
Yeah.
But through counseling, I realized that I could sit in that, right?
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do it since the campaign.
There's a lot going on,
But I am going to use the time afterwards, right?
Yeah.
To take some time to myself and do just that, man.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like win or lose grieving, right?
Yeah.
It's really like
absolutely.
the process, right?
The process.
And like the hurting things that people say to me that I think I brush off, but like when I wake up is echoing in my head, right?
Exactly.
Or how a person slammed the door in my face, right? Even though I've gotten a lot of I got more positive than negatives, but somehow those negative things are still echoing in my head, right? And so, like, I'm gonna take time to do that, but I'm intentional about taking that time to, like, just sit in my mess.
Your mess.
Yeah.
And just to give context to the listeners, I try to discuss a lot of inner child work. So usually when I'm talking about grief, I mean, in a literal sense, like if you lost a parent like I did, that's one thing. But a lot of times I understand, like, when we were children, we were hurt. Yeah. And I know for me, I suppressed a lot of it because I didn't have the time, like you said, to mourn, because crying don't pay the bills, crying don't achieve goals in our minds anyway. Right. So sometimes I feel like I do have to give myself that process to be sad, because I wasn't allowed to be sad when I really needed to be, you know, because I felt like anyway at the time that if I was sad, I wouldn't have been able to maneuver and navigate the trauma. Right. You know what I mean? Right.
And I got a mentee now who feels like if he's sad, then he's going to break down, right? So he chooses not to even go there.
He avoids it.
Yeah, altogether. And that was once me, right, back in the day. But I learned that it never really leaves you. It just turns into something else. Something else. Right? It manifests itself in something else. So you might want to be the best version of a dad, right, for your children. But because you didn't deal with your childhood trauma, it reforms itself in the lives of your children. Yeah. Right? Or, you know, or how you interact with them or whatever, right? And so those are the roadblocks that stops you from being the roadblocks that stop you from being the best version of yourself.
Last question. Then we'll leave on a positive note after this. As a child, what was the most traumatic experience that comes to mind when, you know, like you're in therapy, the thing that probably hovers over you the most, context is that we've talked before.
Yeah.
But what's the thing that sticks out of your mind as traumatic for you growing up?
Oh man, so that's a very hard question because
Slowly.
as soon as you said that, like seven
triggered,
things
right?
just went
Yeah.
went through my head. But I remember being about 11, 12, and my mom and my stepdad were fighting, right? And my mom is a strong woman, right? And he was very abusive to her growing up. And I remember like getting in between them to like try to stop him, and like the rage that he looked at me with, right? Like I thought that he was legit gonna kill her and me at that point, right? Because I got in between him, and he looked at me in a crazy way, and like
You can still see
I
it
could still
now.
I could still see, I could feel that, right? I could hear it, right? I know what it smelled like. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so yeah, man. And so I'm very protective over the people I love, man.
Gotcha.
Like you can't say whatever, even saying something to like my children or like my wife or whatever, or my friends for that matter, or
I've noticed
you
that,
can't say nothing around my friend about me, about my friends around me. You know what I'm saying?
You're gonna go into defense immediately.
Automatically,
Yeah.
because I the time that I could have or I thought I should have, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything with that. Right. And so like I'm very sensitive to that.
Look up Steven Jackson. You know Steven Jackson? He has All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes. Pressure,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
right?
I've seen him. Yeah.
He talks about his brother. His brother was killed, I believe, in Texas somehow, and he couldn't help him. However the incident went down, he couldn't get to him. And he made it to the NBA, and then he started to have a reputation as a quote-unquote thug, even though people didn't know his story. And he was just, like, he got into a big fight, the Malice at the Palace, in the NBA, where, like, the fan hit one of his teammates, and he defended him. And he always went back to how he was hurt because his brother got killed and he was never able to defend him.
Right.
So it was very, what you just said was very reminiscent of that.
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely.
But on a positive note, I just want people to understand that, you know, anybody can be a politician, right? Anybody can be in a position of power,
Absolutely.
whatever, authority. But to me, it's the symbolic, the symbolism in the journey of you coming from Booker T,
Right.
going to Harvard, navigating traumatic situations like that, and getting where you are now is probably bigger than you even becoming a mayor or any position ever.
Right.
That journey itself is the one that no one can take from you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think I do a really good job at like.
I like that you told yourself you do it. We gotta be kind of ourselves.
No, like
That's not narcissistic.
that's true though. That's
anyway.
true. That's true.
Anything.
Yeah, I think I do a really good job at like putting out to the world how I the great parts of my life, right?
Yeah.
I would like to do a better job at showing how I think about solving problems and issues, right? Because ultimately, they see like the glitz and the glamour, and they think celebrity, right, or popular. But really, I've been able. Is a
have
lot of
depth to
ingenuity.
you.
Yeah, it's right. Is a lot of systemic things, right? Where I've had conversations with you, like, listen, I'm about to do this, and then after that, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna move over here, and I'm gonna do that. It's very strategic, right? And so I'm going to start showing that side of me more, so that folks will know that that there's a system there, and I need other people to emulate that, right?
100%.
And so I realize,
genius in navigating trauma, right?
Yep,
Because
yep,
I always say, if
yep.
I didn't have the trauma that I had, I'd probably be on Mars working for NASA.
Yeah, right.
NASA. But I had to use my genius to navigate the things that were pressed upon us.
Absolutely.
So that ingenuity that you have, you navigated the trauma.
Right.
Now you're gonna use it and show the world, like you said, that you can problem solve, and because you've already problem solved at the highest level. I don't care what nobody says.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And at the end of the day, it's really not about the position, right? It really isn't, right?
Yeah.
It's more about the ability to make decisions on the behalf of folks who can't otherwise, right? And being in a position to really create policy and change the trajectory of people's lives so that they don't have to go through what I went through.
100%.
And that's the goal, man.
Absolutely.
That's my chief goal. And so whether it's the mayor's position, if I get it now or not, I'll probably go again, right? Or if it's any other thing that will affect change in a major way, that's what we're doing, man, because the goal here is not to create another generation that experience what we experience.
Absolutely. Before I close out this biased interview, um, anything you want to tell the voters, the world, young people before
Oh
you
man.
close out?
So when I think about this journey, man, I'm going to use this analogy that I heard TD Jakes use.
TD Jakes is dope.
Yeah, man. This one dope concept that I'm walking with, right? So in general, when we think about the restaurant, right? When we go into any restaurant, you know, it's clean, right? Is the tables are wiped down? You know, depending on where you go, is like, you know, the ambiance is lit, the chandeliers, all that good stuff, right? But then when you go into the kitchen, I don't care what kitchen you go to, right? It's a mess back there. The greasy floors, right? It's noodles on the walls, right? It's like grease everywhere.
Dirty sneakers.
Dirty sneakers, right? You can't even dress a certain way going back there, right? And so why is that so important? Because in life, on the inside of us, right, it feels like the kitchen a lot of times, right? And we feel like, yo, I'm a mess. I'm dirty. I got all of this going on or whatever, right? But the reality is that's not what everybody else sees, right? That's not the person that you present. And so be okay with the kitchen experience, right? And know that like that what you present to the world is the restaurant. Right, and that no one sees the kitchen. We don't see a lot of the kitchens, right?
Said this?
Well, he said it in a more eloquent way, but I just like broke it down to in a very simple.
I was gonna steal that, put it on YouTube. But yeah, that's dope,
yeah, man, absolutely. And even with systems, right? Like when I started running for mayor, I'm like, yo, my back office is crazy right now. And then when we put on events, people are like, yo, it's one of the best events we ever had. Meanwhile, I'm texting this person, we're screaming at this person, right? So that's the kitchen experience, and just know that like the restaurant and the kitchen are two different things. Even though, you know, essentially you prepare for the restaurant and the kitchen. You know what I mean? So that's what we're doing right now.
That's dope, man. We should have been